All right, let's talk about just simple color mixing. You can see I've gone ahead and laid out the primary colors, yellow, red, blue. You know, these are the colors, as mentioned in the lectures, that they're just straight out of the tube. So these are, you know, a no-brainer. Like when you're doing the color wheel, these are what you'll put down to describe red, yellow, and blue. So what happens when we need to make our secondaries? Obviously we need to mix these, right? So first of all, remember yellow and red are going to make orange. So let's start to do that. But one thing you want to keep in mind when you mix is it's always a lot easier to use the lighter color and then mix in the more dominant color. So in this case it would be red. So let's try just a little bit of red and see what happens when it lands in that yellow. I like to mix with my palette knives. It gives me greater control, but you're free to use your paintbrushes if you like. So you can see where I get the orange right there straight away. And the other demo for the color wheel will give you a little bit more of the spectrum of how to get some of these variations. But so once we have that, it's ready to go on your color wheel, or like what we're going to do next for this assignment is to describe tint and shade. I'm going to just continue mixing here just so we can work with what we've got, and then we're going to tint the colors next. So let's try a little bit on this side. We'll add a bit of blue to our yellow. Let me get a bit more of the tube. So we have plenty. I'm always a little stingy with the colors, and I think you'll see quickly that you really don't need as much as you might think you do, so I would just start out less is more. The acrylics they can dry up rather quickly, so sometimes you may want to have like a little spray bottle of just some water. This is just a recycle bottle, and that'll keep your paints nice and moist. So anyway, we've got a little bit of blue. I'm going to separate some of the yellow that I intend to mix with it. And then let's see where that lands us on the green scale here. We need a little more blue. That's a nice yellow green if we wanted to keep it, but I'm going to keep pushing this a little bit darker. Again, use your value or your color wheel, the one that you purchased. And you're also free to, if you don't want to be mixing your secondaries all the time, you're free to purchase, like say green. Phthalo green is great, or, you can get purple, orange. It's up to you. Once we get through the color units, you'll see where, you'll see a little bit more clearly what you'll probably use. So there we have some green. All right, so let's see what happens when we take a white to do some tinting. So white will be, I'll mix that a little more. The white will be the lighter of all the colors, obviously. So what happens when we take, we're going to make a tinted version of our orange. Let's see what happens. Got a little separating here, and I'm adding a bit of that orange. There's no right or wrong on this. So it may turn out lighter, it may turn out darker. It's up to you where you want to see it fall. But I just want you to get an idea of how you can change these properties. So remember that, the idea of like saturated color. Versus more of a muted color. So you can see this is the same orange, but when I add the white, depending on how much I add, it's going to diminish that saturation of the color. So this is probably what we'd describe more accurately as a pastel. But on the other side of that, let's see what happens when we decide we're going to shade that orange. So in this instance, obviously the orange, instead of working to white, take a little bit of orange over here, and let's add a bit of black to it. I'm just going to scrape some off. See how quickly this is drying? So you can see how that behaves. Let's lay it down. Lay it down on Bristol here. So here we have original orange that we mixed. And then here we have the shade or the tinted version of that orange. And now we're going to put down the shaded version of that orange. When you lay these down, I mean, it's good to keep your brush moist, but try to keep your paint application flat, opaque color. That way you can see how it's behaving. Because if you add too much water, as you can see, it kind of dilutes it and you're getting more of the whiteness of the paper below it. And that's fine. You know, as we go along, water is going to have a great deal of a benefit with how you're able to work with your acrylics. So here you can see what happens just in a really, we're just in a really simple way to just add white or black to a color, like in this example using orange. We'll see the same thing happen again. Let's go back to our original primary. Let's revisit red here and see what we can do. So obviously red, like that example in the lecture where you have the monochromatic palette of Alex Katz's portrait, it's, you know, using red you get all these variations of pinks. So this opens up a whole other realm of possibility with your mixtures. I'm gonna take a little white from over here. It's also great to use more than one palette knife. This is just the only one I have on hand here. So see what happens when I start tinting my red. I get a really nice pink. So in this exercise, we're just sticking with mixing primaries and secondaries, and then, you know, to get the full 12 colors of that color wheel, and then using white and black only to then mix into those individual colors to get first your tint and then your shade. So let's see what happens when we then, using the same red, let's go back and dip a little bit of that black in there. Let's see how that changes. It kind of skews into that, almost like a violet because of the black. So let's see what happens when we lay it down. So here's our original red. I'm gonna lay it near the orange there. Let's get some more of this, the tinted version of it. And you'll want to also make sure you keep your water clean as it starts to, become colored by the paints that you're adding to it. Then it's sometimes hard to keep your colors, true to what you want. So here, very simple example of what you can do. Tint, shade, and the original color, the original saturation there in the middle. So have fun with this. I'm not going to do each one, so you'll sit here and get bored, but obviously you're going to do the same technique with the 12 colors that you did for your color wheel. So it doesn't have to be neat and tidy, just something like this all the way across. And I think that you'll see really quickly how little, of an adjustment you can make to really create an even broader spectrum of your tinted version of the color and the shaded version of the color. So have fun with that, and any questions, obviously, always email.